What's going on, guys? Austin here, taking a look at possible landing spots for Tony Romo this offseason. I've divided teams into two categories: likely and unlikely destinations for the soon-to-be 37-year-old quarterback. Let's begin with the New York Jets. The Jets currently have two quarterbacks on their roster, Bryce Petty and Christian Hackenberg. Hackenberg, if you remember, the rookie from Penn State who did not take a snap for the Jets last season. Now, New York has many enticing offensive weapons, including Brandon Marshall, Eric Decker, and Matt Forte. Now, I think this option is good for both Jerry Jones and Tony Romo. It's good for Jerry Jones in that he gets to trade Romo to a team in the AFC, totally different conference. The Cowboys don't have to come across Romo almost ever, if at all. Now, from Romo's perspective, he gets to go somewhere with a ton of weapons, like I just mentioned. The Jets could easily be turned into a playoff contending team with Romo there. Maybe not win the division because, there's that guy in New England who just got his fifth ring, but they could easily contend for a wild card spot. Now let's go ahead, head a little bit west to Denver, where sources say Romo eyed in the fall. Now, I'm not sure if he's still interested in Denver, but I think Denver should be a little interested in Romo. They currently have two quarterbacks on their roster, Trevor Siemian and Paxton Lynch, both young. They look promising, but they didn't have the greatest of seasons this year. They split time, of course, took some starts from each other. Now, if Romo ended up in Denver, they could potentially trade one of those two young guys. They both got playing time this season. I think they've proved their worth to other NFL franchises. I'm sure someone else would be willing to take a risk on one of them. And Romo would get to play with a great defense, a defense that got Peyton Manning a second ring. I think Denver easily would be catapulted into a playoff spot, just like the New York Jets with the addition, of Tony Romo. And if you remember several years ago, John Elway took a chance on Peyton Manning, coming out of Indy, just released that neck surgery. So we know Elway is comfortable with taking on older veteran quarterbacks. Of course, Tony Romo is not Peyton Manning. However, he is still a proven quarterback who has a lot of talent on the field. Now, heading north to an even colder location in Minnesota. Now, if you're a Vikings fan, I am sorry. I feel for you. I know you wanted Teddy Bridgewater back in there, but all the reports are saying that he is going to be out for 2017, still recovering from that unfortunate injury. Now, Vikings head coach Mike Zimmer spent time with Romo when he was on the coaching staff in Dallas, and adding Tony Romo could mean that the Vikings could finally get some compensation for that terrible deal. They gave up a first-round pick for Sam Bradford. Who in their minds would do that? Now they get to trade Bradford. If they get Romo, they could potentially trade Bradford away, getting some form of compensation back. Obviously not in the form of another first-round pick. That ship has sailed. However, they could get something out of it. Let's go ahead and transition into teams I think are unlikely destinations, but still possible landing spots for Tony Romo. Now let's begin in the state of Texas with Houston. Now this is reportedly where sources close to Romo say that he wants to go. He would get to stay in his state. His family would not have to move that far. It's a very enticing option from a family man's perspective. The only drawback, of course, and it's a pretty big one, being Houston's obligation to Brock Osweiler and that $72 million contract they dealt last season. Because of this, Romo would have to take a far lesser deal once he restructured his contract with Houston. And for that reason, I see it as a slim possibility. I don't think he's willing to take that amount of pay cut. I think he knows he's worth more than that, and that's why I don't think he'll end up in Houston. Now let's go across the country into the Bay Area, where Kyle Shanahan is ringing in the new regime with the San Francisco 49ers. The thing with San Francisco, I think, that prevents Romo from ending up there is the fact that Kyle Shanahan signed a year deal with that organization. That means the 49ers are comfortable taking time, investing in a new quarterback, letting Shanahan groom him for a couple seasons, whomever that may be. I don't think there's a rush for instant gratification there. I mean, they're not a good team. Just because you add Tony Romo does not mean you're going to the playoffs. I mean, that is a tough division with the Seahawks as well as the Cardinals, who had a little bit of a rough year, but should be okay next season. I can't see any justification from a 49ers front office perspective to go out and spend that much money on Romo when you just brought in an entirely new management staff, from general manager to head coach to entire coaching staff, to build an entire new roster with young players, young talent. I just can't see Romo ending up there. Now, maybe the furthest stretch, but I'm not ready to rule it out, is the Washington Redskins. Now, initially hearing this sounds crazy. Why would Tony Romo, a Dallas Cowboy, ever end up a Washington Redskin? I think it is a long shot, but possible. If Kirk Cousins and the Redskins front office cannot come to terms with a deal for the second year in a row, I'm not entirely sure Washington will want to franchise tag him. Franchise tagging a quarterback 2 years in a row is a massive hit. That is a ton of money Washington will have to be spending, and they still will be going into next season wondering if they're going to have a long-term deal with Cousins for 2018, 2019, 2020. So I think if they don't get a deal done this offseason, and Cousins, let's say, goes to San Francisco and reunites with his former coordinator, Kyle Shanahan, the Redskins will be in a quarterback snag. I don't think they're ready to roll into the next season with Colt McCoy under center. So in this situation, they would be on the hunt for a quarterback. Now, Jerry Jones, I don't think would ever trade Romo to Washington. I don't think he wants to see him in the NFC, far less play him twice a season. So this would be a scenario in which Romo would have to go on his own. He would have to be released by the Dallas Cowboys and then pursue his options from there. Washington always has the money to spend, so I don't think that's an issue. But it's not a likely scenario. I think the Jets, if he was released, would be a far more attractive option. Denver also, I think, would be a far more attractive option for him. So yeah, I really can't see him ending up at Washington. Like I said, I think the Jets are the most likely destination from a Tony Romo perspective if he's released and gets to choose where he goes. I also would not rule out Denver or Minnesota. Now, you guys can share your thoughts in the comments below on where you think Romo is going to end up, where you want to see him end up. If you like this video, remember to subscribe for more NFL content. Thank you guys for listening.